The sun hangs high and brutal in the August sky, baking the dusty plains of Apulia. The year is 216 BC. Below, a scene of almost unimaginable horror unfolds. The ground is slick with blood, a crimson mud that sucks at the sandals of the victors. This is the aftermath of the Battle of Cannae. 80,000 Roman soldiers had marched onto this field at dawn. Now, as dusk begins to bleed across the horizon, as many as 70,000 of them are dead or dying. It is the single bloodiest day in the history of the Roman Republic, a military catastrophe so complete, so absolute, that it has no parallel. Standing on a small hill, surveying the carnage, is the architect of this masterpiece of destruction. He is Hannibal Barca, son of Hamilcar, the greatest general Carthage has ever produced. For 2 years, he has rampaged through Italy, a terrifying, unstoppable force of nature. He has crossed the Alps with elephants. He has outwitted and annihilated Roman armies at the Trebia and at Lake Trasimene. But this is his masterwork. He has not just defeated Rome's largest ever army, he has erased it. Beside him, his brilliant cavalry commander, Hannibal, is electric with the thrill of victory. He sees the path forward with perfect, startling clarity. He turns to his general and speaks the words that will echo through the halls of history, a ghost of an opportunity lost. "Send me ahead with the cavalry," he urges, "and in 5 days you will dine on the Capitoline Hill." Hannibal hesitates. The city of Rome is over 200 miles away. His men are exhausted. He has no siege engines. He looks at Hannibal, a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes, and declines. And in that moment, Hannibal delivers one of the most famous rebukes in military history. "You know how to win a victory, Hannibal," he says, his voice thick with frustration, "but you do not know how to use one." In our history, that hesitation was everything. It gave Rome the one thing it needed to survive: time. Time to grieve, time to regroup, and time to raise new armies. But history is a story of moments, of choices made and paths not taken. Our entire world was built on Hannibal's caution. So let us ask the question that has tormented historians for 2 millennia. What if, in that moment of supreme triumph, Hannibal had cast aside his doubts? What if he had listened to Hannibal? What if Hannibal had marched on Rome? Imagine the scene. The command is given. A wave of exhilaration surges through the victorious Carthaginian army. They are not resting, they are finishing the war. After a single day to gather spoils and tend to the most serious wounds, the army moves. It is a terrifying spectacle. The core of the army, the grim, disciplined Libyan infantry, and the wild, fearsome Spanish cavalry are flanked by thousands of Gallic warriors. Celts from northern Italy, their long hair and painted bodies a vision from a Roman nightmare. This is not just an army. It is a force of global vengeance marching on the heart of its most hated enemy. And what of Rome? The news of Cannae arrives not as a report, but as a wave of pure, undiluted terror. The city is plunged into a state of collective hysteria. The historian Livy tells us that the wailing of women was so loud it drowned out all other sounds. The Senate, for the first and only time in its history, officially sanctions human sacrifice, burying 2 Gauls and 2 Greeks alive in the cattle market, a desperate, bloody offering to appease their furious gods. Into this cauldron of fear, word arrives that is even more terrifying. Hannibal is not resting in the south. He is coming. He is on the Appian Way. The city's defenses are a skeleton crew. Its legions are a memory. their bones bleaching in the Apulian sun. The praetors, the city's magistrates, struggle to maintain order, trying to stop the panicked citizens from fleeing, a flight that would leave the city defenseless. The great, unshakable confidence of Rome has been shattered. The monster that has haunted their dreams for 2 years is no longer a distant threat. It is at the gates. Hannibal's army arrives before the city walls. He does not have the great siege towers and catapults needed to storm the Servian wall. He knows this, but his goal is not to break the stones of Rome, it is to break its spirit. He makes his camp in full view of the city. He parades his army, the captured Roman eagles and standards held aloft as a gesture of ultimate humiliation. He sends his Numidian light cavalry, the most feared horsemen in the world, to ride right up to the city gates, hurling insults and spears. And then he begins the psychological masterstroke. He orders his army to begin the systematic destruction of the countryside. The great villas of the senatorial class, the farms that feed the city, are put to the torch. A ring of fire and smoke tightens around Rome, a visible, choking symbol of its own impending doom. Inside the walls, the Roman spirit, while terrified, does not break. This is the genius of the Republic. Led by the old, cautious Quintus Fabius Maximus, the man who had always argued against facing Hannibal in a pitched battle, the Senate holds its nerve. They refuse to surrender. They refuse to send out an army to be slaughtered. They man the walls, their forces a ragtag collection of old men, boys, and freed slaves. They play for time. But it is the allies of Rome, the other cities and tribes of the Italian peninsula, who are watching this spectacle most closely. Their loyalty was built on a single, unshakable belief: the invincibility of Rome. Now they see that invincibility being torched and burned before their eyes. The great city of Capua, the second largest city in Italy, makes its calculation. They defect to Hannibal. Then the Samnites, the ancient enemies of Rome, follow suit. Then the Lucanians, the Bruttians, the entire structure of the Roman Confederacy, the foundation of its power, begins to crumble. Hannibal does not need to take Rome. Rome is being dismantled from the outside in. The siege is a slow, brutal strangulation. Roman legions recalled from Sicily in the north are forced to fight their way through a hostile countryside, ambushed by Hannibal's Gallic allies. Food supplies dwindle. Disease begins to fester in the overcrowded city. The defiance of the Senate remains, but the will of the people begins to fray. After months of starvation and despair, with no hope of relief, the gates are opened. The city of Rome surrenders.
Hannibal Barca, the man who had sworn an oath on his father's altar to be a lifelong enemy of Rome, walks through the streets of his conquered foe. The sacking is not a wild rampage. It is a calculated political act of destruction. The temples of the Roman gods are stripped of their gold. The Senate house is burned to the ground. The great families who led the war against him are executed. The city that was destined to rule the world is comprehensively, systematically, and deliberately broken. What happens next? Hannibal does not want to be the new king of Rome. Carthage is a mercantile sea power, not a territorial land empire. His goal was never to replace Rome, but to erase it. He dictates the terms of peace. The Roman Republic is dissolved. The great city itself might be allowed to continue as a small, powerless city-state, a living monument to Carthaginian dominance. The rest of Italy is broken up into a patchwork of independent states, free from Roman control, but now firmly within the Carthaginian sphere of influence. Carthage is now the undisputed master of the Western Mediterranean. The next 2 centuries are a Carthaginian golden age. Trade flourishes from the shores of Spain to the coasts of Africa and Italy. The culture is a vibrant, cosmopolitan mix of Phoenician, Greek, North African, and Italian influences. The great struggles for power are not in Italy, but in the East, where the Hellenistic successor kingdoms of Alexander the Great continue their own complex dance of diplomacy and war, unchecked by a rising Roman threat. But the fall of Rome creates a vacuum that changes the very DNA of Western civilization. First, language and law. The Latin language, without an empire to spread it, remains a minor, local dialect. The great Romance languages, French, Spanish, Italian, Portuguese, are never born. The Celtic languages of the Gauls and the Iberians remain the dominant tongues of Western Europe. Roman law, the foundation of nearly every legal system in the West, is replaced by a patchwork of local customs and Carthaginian commercial codes. Second, government and philosophy. The Roman Republic, with its ideals of civic virtue, its Senate, and its complex system of checks and balances, was the great model for the founding fathers of the United States and the thinkers of the French Revolution. Without that model, the very idea of a republic, of a government of the people, might evolve in a completely different way, or not at all. Third, and most profoundly, religion. The Christian faith was born in a Roman province. It spread throughout the world on Roman roads, its message carried in the common languages of the empire, Greek and Latin. The Apostle Paul, a Roman citizen, used the rights and infrastructure of the empire to carry his message from Jerusalem to Rome itself. Without the political and cultural unity of the empire, how does this new faith spread? It might remain a small, obscure Jewish sect in the province of Judea. Its rise to become the dominant religion of the world is no longer a given. And if Christianity does not dominate Europe, then the rise of Islam centuries later confronts a completely different world. It does not face a weakened Byzantine or Eastern Roman Empire. It faces a powerful Carthaginian North Africa, a fractured Europe of Celtic kingdoms, and a Hellenistic East. The entire religious and cultural map of the world is unrecognizable. The world without Rome is a world where Caesar never crosses the Rubicon, where Cleopatra never meets Antony, where the Colosseum is never built. It is a world whose art, architecture, language, laws, and religion are fundamentally, unrecognizably alien to our own. We live in the world that Hannibal Barca failed to destroy. His victory at Cannae was a masterpiece of military genius, but his single moment of hesitation, his single failure to use the victory, was the most consequential and important mistake in the history of the world. The entire edifice of Western civilization, the very foundations of the modern age, was built in the 5 days that Hannibal chose not to march. Our world is a silent, sprawling monument to his one great, magnificent failure. If you enjoyed this journey into a history that never was, please like this video and subscribe for more trips down the paths not taken.